everyone, joining us today for today's CV and Caffeine. Today we have some great co-hosts, Shelby, Logan, and Brad. And today's conversation is going to revolve around how to lead team members through the KPA. And what we mean by that is once they've taken the KPA, you've decided to bring them onto your team. Now what? How do you craft their role based on their KPA? How do you coach them through their role based on their KPA? How do you motivate them to perform based on their life story? So I'm going to turn it over to Shelby to introduce herself, and we'll go around the screen and let the guys introduce themselves afterwards.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Shelby. Despite the y'all, I actually am born and raised in California, but as Logan knows, I spent a good 8 years in the Carolinas, so it's still kind of stuck in me. Former team leader, former OP, former regional director, current team owner of KW's #1 team in Greater Sacramento, California.
That's awesome. I'm going to let you follow that up, Brad.
Great. Loser and failure following any of that. I've been with Keller Williams for 20 years, started as a husband and wife team, been a team leader for the majority of the last 15. I run the Portland, Maine Market Center, about 500 agents, and we're doing pretty good up here. And I'm also an instructor of the Leverage Series. It's something I teach all the time. I'm teaching it Monday, Tuesday in Central Connecticut. So
500 agents, killer, Brad.
that's right.
Yeah. So my name's Logan Webster. I'm with Keller Williams in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in the greater Grand Strand area, from the North Carolina line almost down to Charleston. I came from banking. I came in here as an MCA, never been a real estate agent. Don't ask me how to write a contract. I have no idea how to do it. And then moved into the team leader position in 2020. At that time, we probably had around 95 agents, give or take, and we've since grown to 250. Things are going where they need to go. So, and a big reason for that is CV and the KPA. So happy to talk about it.
Love it.
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So let's talk about how you, an example of how you have hired somebody based on their KPA, put them into the role, did a KPA overlay, and it looked like a good fit for your team. How did you then help that person understand the role and how that role would accentuate or support their different traits? I think
Sure.
Did you guys get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I give a good example right now. We've got our director of agent services who has been with us just over a year. Followed the whole KPA process with her, the whole career visioning process. And almost always there's some gap between the ideal for the role and where somebody shows up. And so I think it's key to not shy away from that and talk strategies about how somebody can, navigate the role while knowing that their natural behavioral style, might have a little bit of a disconnect there, how that might act as a stressor for them as they get into the role. And then I think lastly, really having that conversation throughout the 90 days as we're helping them nail their top 20%, seeing where those moments show up, right? And for this person, one of their challenges, they really reach for perfection. Again, wonderful. And the antithesis of that can be we're not getting things done quickly enough. And so there's a natural tension there. And initially it showed up as working too many hours, and so there was a great coaching conversation around, hey, it doesn't do us any good to have it perfect and on time if you burn out and leave us, right? Like that's not a trade we're willing to make. So let's just dive into these a little bit more. What are some perfection things that we can let go of to give some more emphasis on hitting the deadlines? But really working those in the early stages helps, I think, set the right rhythm. So that was just an example I would share.
I think an example that I think of initially is the first person I hired when I was a team leader in the Carolinas. The model would suggest that at a certain agent count, you would hire an ATL, and I chose actually to hire an EA because I had a 13-week-old son when I came into the role, and I was a new mom trying to figure that out, and I had hesitancies to um, be very cautious about my working hours because I'm a classic overworker, like I imagine most of us are. And so I decided I need to hire the person that could run with me down the field, take the things off my plate that I don't even see on my plate, because most of us have maybe some control issues, or is that just me? But sometimes it's not control issues because we intend to. We just see the finish line. We know it needs to get done, and so I needed someone that would just like run with me, right?
Mm.
And so I hired an EA, which is a little bit outside of, what's normal. And I knew that the EA I wanted was not necessarily analytical or detailed or a processor. I wanted someone that was actually kind of a personality match to me so that they ran as hard and as fast as me. What
Mhm.
that meant is, in order to set her up for success and me up for success, I had to put in guardrails, right? Like, I knew that if I had asked her to put together the team meeting slide deck with all of the awards from all the agents from the previous month, that there might be some mistakes in it. And I knew that I had to tell myself that I couldn't blame her for those things because that's not the person that I hired, right? And I knew that my second hire, just like the model would suggest, like admin, my second hire would be the one to compensate for like the thoroughness and detail and processing and analyzation. So I think that you also have to be very in tune to like, you know, I would say we all know like, okay, we need to hire someone who's going to nail the 20%. But I think it's very easy to lose sight of that as you take people through the CV process because it's so thorough and you get in depth and you bond, right, guys? Like you bond with people during the CV process. And sometimes you can lose sight because you get to know the person so well and like them of the things that they really need to master when they join you. And so I needed to keep sight of that and also make sure that once she onboarded with us and spent time living with me, meaning in the role, right,
Mhm.
that I could set up parameters to help us succeed together based on the things that I knew weren't necessarily in her DNA.
Mm.
That makes so much sense. And to kind of play off of what both of you guys said, I think that's the beautiful thing about the KPA as a whole is it doesn't just tell you like who to hire, it also shows you how to lead them. And as you go through it with them and understand who they are as a person. And to your point that you were just making, Shelby, it's easy. We talk about neutrality a lot, especially inside of the KPA, and whenever you're going through it with someone, and it's easy to start pulling for somebody. And
Mhm.
especially when you really need help and you're hiring, out of necessity and time is of the essence. But I can think of a good example of where I kind of went probably a little bit off the rails whenever I was in that position. We had to hire an MCA and they seemed smart. They checked some of the boxes. It was at the top of their job fit. And I'm an eternal optimist. So a lot of times I ignore massive red flags. And
Mhm.
it was again, it was a learning experience for me, but as going through it and then getting through that 30, 60, 90 portion, we realized quickly that that wasn't going to work and we had to move in a different direction. But that's the thing that I love about it most. It doesn't just show you who to hire, it shows you also how to lead that individual person and being very intentional with it.
Logan, you said you had to go in a different direction. So tell us what that looked like. Did you unhire this person? Did you reallocate them?
No, we unhired. There was I think Gene Rivers says this pretty directly that be slow to hire and quick to fire. It wasn't a good fit for them. They were not going to succeed inside of our organization. So I was only doing them harm by keeping them in the role or even inside of our organization as a whole. So they had to step out and being able to have the conversation from that standpoint and especially using the goals themselves as the bad guy as opposed to me being the bad guy inside of the 30, 60, 90. Like these are the things you have to do makes that conversation so much easier. It removes the emotion from it. It's just like, here's the things, right? And you're not going to get to where you want to go through this avenue. So let's find a different place for you to go.
And if you were not an internal optimist, do you think you would have hired them? Did your defense panel say this is a red flag, or did you just hire because you needed a body?
No, it was definitely there was a piece of definitely needing a body. I did have somebody say that they weren't going to be a fit, and I absolutely ignored it. So it was a great learning experience for me. It's that whole idea of like something goes bad and you go good because hopefully I don't make that mistake again.
Mhm. Both Shelby and Brad both reference, and you too, Logan, the time frame 90 days.
Mhm.
That's really a target time frame where this person's really on probation. Did you make the right hire? Did they make the right choice? Um, and also being self-aware. I mean, Shelby, you knew that when you hired somebody just like you had to have grace for their mistakes because you'd be making the same ones. And then you just compensated for it by making that next hire. Um, let's talk about how you actually motivate the people that you hire. Let's say like the person's going to do the job well, and in the basics they're going to get it done, but how do you motivate them from using the KPA, and then how do you explain that to them either during their 30, 60, 90 or during the hiring process?
Can I give maybe one very, very relevant example because I am in it actually right this second, like this is the packet.
Yes.
And we are potentially hiring this person today. Um, just got done with Life Story and Motivational yesterday. And he's a producer. He's sold more than 100 homes. And so by all means, a team would want to have this person on our team, right? And at the same time, he's got some stuff, right? All of us have stuff. We all have stuff that sometimes mentally like disables us, right? And he has some stuff. And the KPA actually says that he is off the charts in logical problem solving. And at the bottom of the gray area scale where he's supposed to be on optimism. Okay. So bottom on optimism, off the charts on logical problem solving. And so every conversation that he's come into with me has lasted about twice as long as like the model because he's so analytical and he's asking so many questions because his logic is getting in the way.
Mm.
And he texted me last night because he's coming in for his group interview this morning and says, "Hey, do you just have 3 minutes?" And by the way, he had already like been in my office for 2.5 hours, right? Um, and I said, "Sure." So I called him. That 3 minutes was 55 minutes on the phone after 2.5 hours in my office, right?
Mm.
And I told him, I said, "Look, I know how you're wired. I get that you're going to walk in every morning with fear over analyzing whether this was the right fit or not, whether this was the right decision or not. And I am willing to be in the trench with you, but I will not convince you that you made the right choice every day. I'm
Mhm.
willing to help you overcome your fear, but I am unwilling to convince you that you should be here every day. So ultimately, you need to make a choice to walk into this door with both feet firmly planted and committed, right?" So I thought to myself, if I'm not firm about that right now, if I don't set that expectation right now, then the first 90 days are going to be a train wreck, right?
Mhm.
So I also think that it's really important. At church on Sunday, they were talking about truth plus love equals maturity,
Mm.
and fear plus opinions equals immaturity. And you can do without what you may. But I thought to myself, they were talking about people who give too much truth, like they're just hard on you. The coaches that we had, they were just like all fact, all truth, do better. And then there's the leaders that we've been around that are like too fluffy, and so they don't necessarily like get the best out of you. I think that it's really easy, and Logan and I were talking about this, like when you take people through the CV process to really bond with them and really want to like be for them. But at the same time, if you walk into that relationship just cheering them on and not giving them the things that you think might be sticking points or roadblocks in their success, then you're going to actually probably end up being driven nuts by that person and going, "Oh my gosh, why aren't they performing?" When in reality, you may not have given them the truth that they needed to succeed in love, right? So I
Well,
think
then this
that's
is the cliffhanger, Shelby. What did the candidate say to you in response to your comment? I'm not going to convince you.
he was like, okay, I get it. That's fair. And so I followed that up with, I think you need to let go of the expectations you're putting on yourself in life.
Mm.
And he was like, oh, that's helpful. I get chills.
The thing I want to point out with that is like you're already coaching him in his life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this is certainly showing up in all sorts of places. Who the heck else is he interviewing with that's already pouring in unattached to the outcome, right? Shelby cares about him, period. And he's experiencing that already. And so to me, that's one of the great things that makes this whole process a magnet, right? You will attract the right people to you because they're going to know, I really care about you. Whether you come here or not, I really care about you. I want to add value to you. I want to put you first. Like that's what the process is all about. So
I'm glad you pointed that out, Brad, because I think so many people in our KW ecosystem who've gone to CV
mhm.
want to shortcut the process, right? Because it's long, it's lengthy. By the way,
Yep.
he's been pushing on me to get me to make a decision. And
Mhm.
I said, no, we're
Right.
going through the entire process. You
Right.
need to be patient with that, right? And so many of us want to just hurry through, especially when we see good signs in the first, round. But to Brad's point, like nobody pours into candidates, much less people who join us like we do. And that's the thing that makes people want to be part of you. And so please,
I'll piggyback on something that you just said, which reminded me, like, keep in mind that the whole leverage series, that's the shortcut. If you want the shortcut to hiring great people, getting them up and running on their 20% and retaining them for a long time, that is the shortcut. Everything else takes longer, right? You skip parts of CV, you're going to find out. You're going to find
Mm-hmm.
out from people leaving. Yeah. I mean, Logan gave you a great vulnerable example. Like, did a group interview, got the feedback, ignored the feedback. Great. So what did he do? However long that person was with him was effectively a waste of time. Other than the great lesson learned, that hurt, right?
I think that's the
So
biggest thing is that it doesn't just hire talent, it protects the business. It protects
yeah,
time, money, and culture, which is our jobs if we're in this role, whatever we're hiring somebody, right? But when you think about motivating somebody, and Shelby obviously accomplished this, and Brad, I'm sure you have as well. When we go through the life story or the motivational interview or any of that inside of it, or even if you're going through the thought process questions, any of those, it's not just that one question, what happened here, and then they give you an answer, right? Like some of the most important words in the world are, okay, what's important about that? Or what else? And going another step, but because just giving that answer is just that's the cover of the book. There's a whole story inside of there, and it's okay to go deep into it because to your point, this is the shortcut. And it's okay to spend a little bit more time in there. And Shelby, just to point out what you did with him, which I loved, with there's somebody way smarter than me said that unspoken expectations lead to future resentment, and that you set the expectation out of the gate, which is again what career vision accomplishes with the people in front of us. Oh, this is how this company operates, and
oh,
that's attractive for some.
because the only way to motivate people, to your question, Angela, is like by understanding their core. Like you cannot motivate 10 people the same way. You have to like really know like what are the triggers in this person's life that might be roadblocks that will get in the way of their success. Because motivation has to start with hiring someone with a work ethic. Like I never hire someone who's not going to show up, and I tell them that I'm not going to call and get you out of bed. It's not what I
right.
do, right? That's like the initial motivation, right? You got to hire someone who's going to show up. But then the only way to get the most out of them, which I'd call motivation, right, is to understand their core, and that could be different based on who's in front of you.
And
I think
go
to
ahead.
me, I would just hop on. I like the question. I could be wrong with this. This is just how I tend to look at it. When we speak to motivation, I use the KPA as the filter as to how I communicate with them. But the motivational interview ultimately gives me the real nuggets, right?
Mhm.
So that same person that we hired a year ago, a huge part of her motivation is a desire to travel, like really travel, see the whole world, check all the boxes, travel. Um, and so maybe not every 411 conversation we have every week, but it's at least monthly. I go back to that. So what are the systems we have to place, so that you can be gone for 2 or 3 weeks? What do you have to do with your team so that that can happen? And I'm happy to report she's in Europe right now on a 21-day vacation. So, but I mean, that conversation started before she even joined us, you know, and that really, and for somebody else, it's investing in real estate, and somebody else, it's time with family, and somebody else, right? So to Shelby's point, it is completely different for everybody else. You have to take the time to learn it, and then I think communicate through how they process to talk to that motivation.
I think that's a really good point that he just made, though. It can't go into a folder to die.
Mhm.
Like when you get done with it, you get all the information, you have the motivational, all of these things, right? Like you just said, you're bringing that up from that motivational interview
Yeah.
over and over again, and you've been in business with this person over a year.
Yeah.
It's such a ongoing, living, breathing, useful tool.
I think a system that I started to put in place that has been really helpful is it is easy to like go through the whole process, hire them, and then just like go, right? Or at least for me. But
Sure.
I found that people's motivational interviews, the next 5 years, 4 quadrants, changes as they get acclimated to our environment, especially if they're not KW, because they don't even know what they're missing, and then they get immersed in all of this like leadership content. I always think to myself, I don't think that we really understand that we're in a passive coaching environment by being part of this organization, right? The people around us, the things that get said, the classes that we get to go to.
Mhm.
Um, and so I have found that people's motivational interviews sort of change after they get in it. And so on the day that I hire them, I put the motivational interview on my calendar 12 months ahead, because otherwise I'll probably fail to go through that with them again, right? Because it's hard to just like revisit. And isn't it our job to help them achieve whatever they want in the 5 years? Because otherwise, why are we going through it? So that's something that's been helpful for me, is just like putting that accountability in place in advance that I don't forget.
That should be an immediate takeaway for anybody who listens to this is who are you trying to lead and motivate right now that you haven't done that in the last 12 months with? And that to me would be the entry point. Hey, let's revisit this thing, or take the ownership. Like, I was supposed to do this when I hired you. I skipped the process. I wanted to get you up and running, and shame on me. I'd love to set aside some time to do it now.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, no matter what, you can hit the reset button, get to that foundation Shelby's talking about, and then go to the next level.
Thank you for adding that, Brett. And I think it's really important for anybody watching that maybe has never taken someone through a life story, or they've just been promoted and they're going to start doing this. As brilliant as all of you are, there is a manual that you get after somebody takes the KPA that walks you through all of the questions,
Advice that.
gives you the cues not to smile, not to nod your head. I mean, it is pretty specific. But the other thing I want to point out is all of you have mastered the CV process. Brad, you teach it. Shelby, I think you do some of it also as master faculty. Taking the CV, taking CV 2-3 times a year, you will hear different things. You're in a different headspace, and it helps develop you as the leader in your organization.
I also think that sometimes I tell people when I teach, regardless of what it is, like, hey, you guys might learn something from what someone adds in the audience today more than you'll learn from like me or the delivery of the content. So I think taking it multiple times is about a couple things. Number one, we never read something once and go, okay, got it, master, right?
Crushing it. Yeah.
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 But at the same time, you should take it from different instructors, because we've all had different experiences and different examples that might hit differently because we're all wired differently. And then the collaboration of the classroom. Again, sometimes there's something that someone says, and I'm like, oh, that's an aha for me. Like Brad said a couple things that I was like, oh, that's an aha for me. Right. And I've taught it for years. So yeah, like the importance of revisiting the content and the collaboration of it is critical. You can't just go once or twice and be done.
One of the entry points that I like is we're all attracted to real estate effectively because of two things: flexibility of time, unlimited income. Like that's the entry point that initially gets us excited about this industry. And to really get the flexibility of time, you have to master the 411 tool and you have to master time blocking. If you don't, you will never get the flexibility of time. You'll actually get the opposite of it. But to unlock the unlimited income, you have to master getting into business with other people. It's the only way it happens. Otherwise, you will hit a ceiling of what you can do, and you will not break past that. So the leverage series and the KPA specifically as a tool is the exact roadmap. So until you've mastered that process, you got to keep taking it. You got to keep whacking away at it.
And I think that obviously, yes, take it as often as you can. We do. I think it's even a requirement in our region. We have to take it a certain amount of times a year, which is awesome. But then go practice it. Not even if you're not hiring somebody, that's okay.
Mhm.
If you're in leadership in a market center, do it with your agents, right? If you're running a team, do it with the members on your team. Like I think it was Phil Jones that said the worst time to think about what we have to say is in the time we have to say it.
Right.
Go practice. Go do this, right? We tell agents all the time, you're going to come to every contract class, and then it's going to come time for you to actually write one. And you're going to want to call somebody and you're going to need some help. So again, go out and practice it, participate in the ones that Brad and Shelby teach around the country and the one inside your region, and then come home and put it into practice.
Those are some great nuggets. I think we're going to end it here. Our time is up. Thank you all for being part of this today, for all the wisdom that you have instilled in others. Thank you for everyone joining us and for watching it. And we'll be back next month for our next edition of CV and Caffeine. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.